divine medium, Dr. Rose, coming to you live with another message of what you need to know today. So you guys, we are doing graphology, okay? We're going to dive right in and just really get deep with the knowledge, okay? Now, graphology is great because you can determine a person's, emotional state, sexual preferences, struggles. You can tell about their past, their present. You can tell pretty much a lot. You can tell just about anything about a person based off of their writing, and we're gonna get into it. Okay. By the way, graphology changes. Hold up. Sorry, the thing just okay. It changes with different writing subjects based off the person's feelings, okay? So let's go ahead and look at it. So here's a typical line. Like, let's say this is a paper, and this is like the first line of the paper, right? If they're writing in the upper part, right? So let's say they're doing like love, they're writing love or something. And I'm going to use a lot of different handwritings, so if you want to analyze, you can, but they're not my handwritings, okay? So if they're writing love, okay, in the upper part, they're saying the upper part is your thinking, is your imagination, okay? So they're really thinking and imagining with love, okay? So if they're writing more lower, like right here, right? If they're writing kind of slopes down, like they're doing love like that, and it's more like on the lower, okay? The lowers is your desires, okay? Your desires, like sexual, money, power, okay? Now, if they're writing like right in the middle section, midsection, it's gonna be like right here, okay? So if they're writing here, which this is like typical right here, okay? That's gonna be your ego, you, and like the way that you behave, okay? So again, alright, you guys, make sure this. So again, the top portion of the upper is your imagination and the way you think, which is right here. Your imagination and the way that you think, okay? Your middle is your ego and your behaviors, okay? And the bottom is your desires, or like the negative things like sex and stuff like that, like going with chakras, okay? All right, now go ahead and pull one of these. So your upper is also going to deal with your morality, your intellect, your future, your thinking, your religion, your imagination. Your mid zone is going to deal with your day-to-day life, your social, your relationships, and the present. The lower, again, sexual desires, survival, food, power, money, things like that, okay? So let's go ahead and get into what different writings are going to look like, okay? And what this means when you have certain writings, okay? Oh, crap, no. Now we're going to talk about your margins, okay? And I know it sounds crazy, but all of this is important, okay? Margins. Margins. Right, boom, boom, boom. Something like that, okay? It's what a piece of paper is going to look something like that. Okay? Okay. So, basically, this, I'm going to be writing this out too, so Y'all can copy it down if you do. Okay, so the top is going to be the present. The middle section is the present. Okay, the left margin is the past, also associated with the negative, like fears and nerves. Okay, and then you've got your future, which is over here. It's the positive side, and it's like hasty. Okay, so if you have somebody who is using, let's say they're using all the width, right? Okay, so if you see somebody and they're using all the width, like they're using this whole line, it's all of it, they're using all of it, that means that this person is selfish. Okay, so if they're writing and you see that all over the page, they're very selfish. Okay, self-centered. Now, if they're writing over, you know, typically these are red lines, right? On the side of the paper, these are red lines. If they're writing over the red line, like this, okay, that would be that they are rebellious, okay? They don't like following rules, okay, and they kind of think outside the box. Okay. If they don't use lines, so let's say they're saying love, and they're just writing, they're just not even using lines, they're just writing all over the place, like love, and they're like I, and then they say, you know, it might be like you, you know what I'm saying, they're just not using lines. It's hard for me not to use lines, because I use lines. But anyway, so let's say that they do that. Those are usually like genius or like artistic people, okay, who like don't use lines, okay? Then you've got your people who stay in the mid zone, right? They stay between this one right here and this one right here. They mainly write right here. These are people who are based in the present moment, okay? They could be like, they're all about the right now, but they definitely could be like kind of loners, right? Because they're so focused on the present, okay? And you can tell a lot about somebody who's writing a lot over here, right? And your right margin, they're really forward based. They move this way. It's just like whenever you see somebody and they write, like, let's say you write, hold on. Let's say you write the word love, right? And then you put a line under it. When you put a line under something, it goes from the past to the future, okay? It's the same with people's writing. So if they're writing more this way, right? Hold on. Okay. So let's say this person is writing and they're gonna, they start their writing right here and they're writing towards the future, right? They're writing towards the future. They're a positive person. They're so forward thinking. Sometimes they might even be too forward thinking, okay? They just write really, really forward, okay? Versus somebody who writes back, they might start back here and only write to right there, okay? Because they're starting in the past and they're trying to move forward, but they're still lacking some space. You could tell where they're at versus that person who's writing in the middle, you know, they're writing in the middle, they're kind of in the present, okay? Yeah. Give me just a second. Now, we're going to talk about the baseline, okay? Now, the baseline, whenever you're writing, the baseline is like, again, it's that bottom line, okay? It's the baseline. That could be like a baseline too, but anyway, this is the baseline, okay? So if you're writing and you're like up here, if somebody's, okay, that's the middle line, you know, let you know, like when you're writing. Okay, so if somebody is writing and they're all aloof, right? They're all like, they're up here when they're writing. They're like dogs, cats, birds. Okay, and they're all like writing up here and stuff. That's more like they're not connected because they're far from the baseline, right? The baseline. Okay, if they're clinging to the baseline, like let's say they're writing like this, right? I said, can we go to the park? But they're clinging to the baseline. Well, a better representation. Hold on, let me make the, sorry, let me make the baseline like, I'm gonna make it more like actual for y'all. Okay, so, okay, we're gonna imagine those lines in there, okay? So if they're writing all up here, right? If they're all writing up here, again, they're not connected, okay? Or if they're clinging to the top of it, like, you know, they're clinging to the top, but they're like off the baseline, right? They're off the baseline. You see them detaching from the baseline. That could be them detaching from reality. Because the baseline is reality, okay? Now, let's say they're clinging to the baseline, okay? So they're gonna write like this. They're gonna write like, they're gonna make sure that everything is kind of like touching the baseline, right? Everything's kind of touching that baseline. That means they're clinging, they have tension, anxiety, stuff like that. Okay. Now let's say they're down here with their writing a little bit more, so they're like, they're more like this. Right? They're more like down here. That's saying they're more like in their ego, their desires, self-consciousness, stuff like that. Okay? So, now we're going to talk about specific things. Okay? So, when writing, if you see somebody writing like, okay, I'm going to give you a few examples. You might not be able to see that very good. Hold on. Okay. If you're seeing somebody write and they're writing in reverses, right? Like, instead of their G doing this, right? Instead of their G doing something like that, their G is going to go like, oh, y'all, I'm sorry, it's hard for me to draw this. Their G is going to do something more like that. Wait, something more like that. Okay, so instead of it going to the normal direction, their G is going to go the opposite way. Okay, reverse means that they're dishonest or they have guilt. Okay, now let's say they're writing like this, right? They'd be like, hello, I'll see you then. If they're writing like this and all of their writing is connected, they're confused, okay? They're confused. They need help, okay? Their life is all over the place. They don't have good boundaries, stuff like that, okay? So then that's called tangling, by the way. Okay, so let's say they're writing and then they rip the paper, right? So they're making a T and they rip the paper. And you start seeing a lot of rips in the paper. They don't know how to communicate. They have problems communicating. Okay? Let's say that they're writing and they're writing like an F and then like R is normal, right? Then they're making a O, and then their M is like, they make their M's like that, okay? Somebody who writes like this is called warping, okay? This person is emotional, and they are disturbed. They are emotionally disturbed, okay? Because they are warping things, okay? Then you see like wobbling. So with like wobbling, you're gonna, it's kind of similar to warping, but it's not, okay? So like wobbling, they're gonna be like love, like that. They write like that. This could be indicative of anxiety or like health issues, you know, like somebody who has like a really shaky hand, okay? Definitely tells you about health issues, okay? Let's say that they're writing and they, let's say they're writing and they slant. They write and they slant forward, right? So a slant forward means like they do have boundaries, but it's also like, you know, forward. They're positive. They're more positive. Versus if they write and they slant backwards, right? If they write and they slant backwards, right? Then that's a more sad person. So this is more positive. This is more negative. Okay? Now, there's certain writing to where like, okay, here's your irregular D, right? A regular D. Okay, that's a regular D. Now, the crazy thing about it is, you can tell if somebody is like typically like a serial killer based off of their D's. Okay, so if let's say they're writing and they write kind of slanted, right? They write a little bit like that, but then their D is like far slanted like that. That's like the serial killer D. Like if they're slanting when they're writing, that's one thing, but when they have a far out D, that is like serial killer signs, okay? Most serial killers do that, okay? Like Ted Bundy, stuff like that. Dahmer, okay? Now, let's say they're writing like Donald Trump, okay? A lot of like tough lines. Or maybe they're making like, man, I do, right? They're writing really like, I'm sorry, hold on. Really like, they write like that, like a lot of like, that's the word man, by the way. But like if they write like really sharp, that shows aggression, that shows that they're kind of compressed, like they're tightly wound. This is a very like successful people write like this, okay? It also shows anger. A lot of angles show anger. So if you see somebody writing and they're just writing normal, like they're writing hello, and then they say Manny, right? They put Manny like that. Like they're mad at Manny, okay? It shows aggression in writing, okay? So then you have overly perfect writing, right? So let's say somebody writes like this. Overly perfect, like it's all like, you know what I mean? Everything is symmetrical, right? Everything is like same size. Okay, that's like they're controlling. They have OCD. Okay, predictive, stuff like that. If they write small, they could be shy. They could be stuff like that. They could be like super shy, self-conscious, detailed. Now let's say they're writing this like this, and then you notice that they're writing that's like smaller and smaller. that is a sign of anorexia, okay, when their writing gets smaller and smaller. Whew. Yes, okay, so let's say that they're writing the word pink. Okay, this is typical pink, right? But let's say they want to embellish. They're like one of those people who like to really like, maybe that's how they make a pink. No, that's kind of warped. Let's do like, wait. Let's say they do their P's like this, right? Like really embellished P. And then they write tape like this. Their T's are like that and stuff. This is like, they could be overly embellished. They want people to pay attention to them. They're over the top. They're kind of insecure. They like to cover stuff up. Certain shit like that. Okay? Now, if they're writing, so we know what somebody who writes with a bunch of sharpness looks like, right? Now, somebody who writes with a bunch of like, you know, maybe they write with more like, how do you draw that A? You know, they write with more curves, right? The more curves that they write with, the like more calm, the more relaxed that they are. They like to flow, they're gentle, they're friendly, okay? And then we've got I. So let's say they're writing I, okay? So let's say they're going like do, right? Do, and then they write I like this. Their I is small. That means they don't value their self very much, right? They're making it small. They're kind of insecure. If their I is like I, they're overly, you know, they're like kind of self-centered. They like all the attention. Let's say if their I don't have a dot or a line to it. It's like it's an I, but like the I is like, there's also the short I, right? So like, let's say their I is like way up there, right? It's really detached. The higher the dot, like the less that they care, right? The lower the dot, the more like together that they are. And then like, let's say they embellish, right? What is that saying? Like I. Right, they're like cute, they like to be seen, stuff like that, okay? So you can tell like based off of somebody's writing, okay? So then illegibility. Let's say that they're writing and you just cannot read their writing, right? They're writing, you just can't read it. They don't care enough for them to read it, for you to read it, they don't care, right? So they're just gonna write the way that they write, okay? That's a sign that they might be depressed or angry, okay? Now the T's, when somebody is making a T, okay, or a lowercase t, right? Wherever the line is placed is how they view their self-esteem, okay? Is how their self-esteem is. So like if you're saying I have talent and your T is dotted way up here, talent, okay, then you are confident, okay? So again, we're gonna make a line, and then I'm gonna just show you. So this is our T line, okay? If your T is up here, and if your line is up here, super confident. Lower, 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 lower. Low confidence down there, okay? So wherever you put your T, wherever you cross your T at, that's where your emotional state is, okay? It's the same with the I, okay? Ooh. Guys, my hands are kind of cramping up a little bit. Sorry about that. Now, we're gonna talk about signatures and writing, okay? So let's say that your writing is like this. You write like this. Your signature should be, well, let's say you write like that. So your signature should look something like similar to how you write. It should be similar, okay? Even if you're making your abbreviations, it should be similar, okay? You should see similarities. Let's say that this is how you write. Maybe you write like this. right? You write like that, but your signature looks like this, right? You write real harsh, but then you have a lot of curves in your actual signature. That shows that you are hiding something, okay? That shows that you are hiding something. If your signature and your writing does not match, that shows hiding, right? Yeah, lies, okay? So there's also some signs about your G's, okay? So we're gonna start with this G, then we're gonna go to this G, then we're gonna talk about this G, and we're gonna talk about this G, and then we're gonna talk about this G, okay? So this G right here, where you have like angles and stuff like that, is more like a married man who typically deals with like prostitutes and stuff like that, okay? That's how he writes, okay? He's gonna write a lot like that. And like if a feminine, she's doing like the sharp G thing, she has dad issues, okay? If she writes her G's like that, she has father issues, okay? Now, if they're writing and they write their G's with this right here, or it looks like something like that, that is the criminal claw, right? If they like, let's say they're writing, where would have G and Y together, right? So let's say, I know that sounds crazy, but let's write the word gay, right? And they write gay like this. That's a criminal. Criminals write like this. Like murderers, shooters, robbers, so on and so forth. They write like this. Rebellious. These are people who you don't want working for you. You don't want hanging out with you. These are negative people. And if you write like that, you might want to work on that. Okay? Now, with your G's, let's say you write a G and your G is just no line, okay? Your G says a lot about your sexuality. So if you've got a G and your G is like this, it's just straight, you don't really need friends, you're not really over-sexualized, you could care less about all that, right? But let's say you have a G and your G does this. Okay, so your G does have an opening here, so you're kind of sexual, you know, you have desires, things like that, okay? Now let's say that your G does this. The bigger the circle, the more sex they want, the more friends they need, the more social, okay? So the bigger the loops, it's the same for P's, like, right? Like, let's say they make a P like that, and they make a P like that. The bigger the holes, or even with the A, right? Make an A like that, or they make an A like that. You know, the bigger the hole, the bigger the hole. No, but the more people that they need, and the more so on and so forth, okay? Let's say they write real coyly, right? They write real coyly, or they do this number, and they say you, when they write their stuff, like that's the word you, right? They write real coyly. That's a fake snake person. That is a snake. They are like snaky, okay? The bigger that they write, the more extrovert. The smaller, the more focused, the more shy, meticulous. Now let's get into signatures and stuff like that, okay? We'll write a few times. This. Let's say that this is somebody's first name is Lou, and then their last name is Ban, okay? Okay? Lou Ban, that's their name, okay? Lou Ban, okay? So, if they scratch out, so their first name is one thing, but their second name, right, their last name, you get your last name from father figures, okay, or your husband's. So like if how close their last name is to their first name is how close they are with their dad or their husband. Okay? So like this, is this person close? No. Is this person close? No. That person is probably divorcing. That person doesn't like their father, so on and so forth, right? Let's say they scratch out their last name. Yeah. They hate them, can't stand them, they've had a hard relationship. If it's super close, that's a codependent. If it's, close enough, then, so on and so forth with the name things, okay? And then, let's say people do this, like whenever, you might write something that you do like this, right? You see that thing, like, they put love, and then that's how they underline like that. If they underline like that, that person is, they put people on pedestals, okay? That's called a pedestal. So they're putting whatever that does like that on a pedestal, okay? Let's say you have your signature, right? Da-da-da, and you underline it. If you underline it this way, that means you're regressing. You're going backwards, right? If you underline it regularly or you pedestal it, right? It means you put yourself on a pedestal. Let's say you underline let's say whenever you go to, okay, let's write Bob, okay? Now, Bob is forward moving, right? Boom. The slope kind of tells you where they're at. Like, let's say they line it up, boom, positive. They line it down, negative, okay? If they go right through it, that's called a bullet through the head. If you see somebody writing and they do that, 9 times out of 10, they will shoot themselves in the head with a gun. Yeah, that's literally what that's called. They're putting when people see this, you will see, like, later on in life, if it's not addressed, that person shoots themselves in their head. Yeah. Right? Another thing, like, let's say Bob is writing what Bob wants to do, what he's hungry, right? So Bob's hungry. So he's writing hamburger. This downward slope, right? They started off good and then they just dropped it. That is a sign of suicide. They are suicidal. That person writing like that, they are suicidal. Okay, so you check in on those people who are like that. Now, if you see like garlands, right? They write like that, real loopy garlands. Those are relaxed people. Those are people persons, okay? Now, you have O's. Different O's are going to mean different things. So let's say you got this O, then you've got this O, then you've got this O right here, and you've got this O right here, and then you've got, let's say you got this O like that, right? Okay, so this O is somebody who's honest, upfront, frank, forward. Okay, they write like that. This O is somebody who is secretive. Like, the bigger the O, like, the more secretive. Now, if their O's got stuff inside their O's, they are lying, they are secretive, the more that they are hiding. Okay, the more that they're hiding. If their O's look like this, that's a talkative person. Okay? So, yeah, you guys. So this is just a little bit of help for y'all. If you're, looking at, maybe you're looking at your children's writing, or, you're talking to somebody and you're writing letters back and forth and you notice certain things in their writing. Also, a really cool thing, right? Let's say you're writing and you're like, this is 1 year, and then all of a sudden, okay, this is the same person, different years. Okay? Let's say that this is how this person writes. Okay? This is how this person writes. What would you say? Right? What would you say? Not too much going on, right? But there's a shift, right? They shift their writing. So now they became more angry. This was more relaxed, more calm, more comfortable. Their spacing, you know, the less space, the more uptight. The more space, the less uptight, right? So they're uptight, they're angry. Then they get back to their like fun, but they've been lying. Then, let's say out the blue, they started writing like this. Well, if there's that claw, they're thinking criminally. They must have got into something different. Maybe they got into a game or something like that. Okay? So you guys, I definitely hope that this has helped you guys. You know, this is definitely a harder, you know, thing to learn because it's so, there's so many different writing styles, even more so than this. But it can tell you so much about a person. Just, you know, just being here with me for this small time, you've learned so much about writing, about different people's writing. And maybe you've even learned a little bit about your own writing, which is my hope that you use this information to help yourself or to help others. If you see somebody writing a certain way, you're like, hey, are you depressed? Or hey, are you angry? Or, you know, oh, have you been suicidal? Or do you have a gun at home? You know, just different things that you can learn based off of those writings. Anywho, I hope that this has helped. Stay blessed, never stressed. With much peace, much power, much love, much light, and of course, much joy. I'll see you guys next time.